Hey guys, welcome back to the Driver Mod. Thank you for clicking on this video. Today we're going to be talking about Gen 1 Voodoos in the GT350s and how to maintain them. Appreciate you tuning into this members only exclusive video. Your support is greatly appreciated. But let's get right to it. Just want to start out with all the information that we're going to cover in this video is purely my own personal opinion on how to properly maintain, take care, and treat these cars. I've been getting a lot of questions on social media about, hey, I just got a Gen 1 Voodoo, or hey, I'm looking at a GT350 with a Gen 1 Voodoo. What should I do to, maintain it, care for it? What should I look out for? Are they as bad as they're made out to be on social media? And the answer to that is no. They are not as bad as everyone makes them out to be on social media. Everyone knows bad news travels farther than good news. These engines, yes, they have their gimmicky, I don't want to call them inherent flaws, but you can have a perfectly good working engine and give you a long service life, or you can have one that's bad right out of the box, and typically really quick. As far as my car specifically, this is a 2016 Gen 1 Voodoo with 27,300 miles on the clock. It is the original engine. It is untouched, unopened. It is tuned. It doesn't burn any oil, and if you're a long-time follower of the channel, you know I don't exactly baby this car. Now, something else I also see on a lot of forums and social media posts and what that is, avoid the Gen 1 Voodoo if you don't have a warranty. It's $25,000 to replace the engine, and again, that cost is going to vary based on your market, but the basis of that cost is, again, false. These engines are not $25,000 to replace. If a Ford dealer replaces these engines under warranty, the bill that goes to Ford is greater than what the bill would be in a customer pay situation. I know several examples of this, and the way I know that is I was a Ford technician, and I know how the warranty system works. And the dealership will charge the manufacturer the maximum possible amount they are able to based on their customer pay rate and their area. A $25,000 engine to Ford does not mean it's going to be $25,000 for a customer pay. I had a friend, Voodoo failed at the track. He did all the labor himself, but the engine, a stage 1 RPG engine, shipped to him, was I think about 10 grand. So even if you wanted to have a shop replace your engine that you bought from RPG or what have you, your 10,000 in parts, now you add, a typical engine replacement's going to run you 30 to 40 hours. Whatever your labor rate is, multiply that by 30 to 40, and even at $200 an hour, which for a Ford dealership is a little high, again, depending on market, you're looking at worst case scenario is like high teens. You're looking at $16,000, $18,000. That's the max. Most, like my Ford dealership local to me, I think it was like $150 an hour. So 150 times, we'll say a maximum of 40 hours for an engine swap. That's about $6,000. So a $25,000, $30,000 engine replacement, not true. Now, should you own this engine out of warranty? That's completely up to you. This is a prime example of a perfectly fine Gen 1 Voodoo. Hasn't had powertrain warranty in 2.5 years. The only little issues it's had is the cylinder head temp sensor failed. I have a video on that on my channel where that happened and how I diagnosed it and what the symptoms were. So if you have or you experience those issues, you know what to look for. Outside of oil consumption, really the things that the Voodoo is known for is the VCT or the cam position sensor connectors there, the angle at which this harness bends, especially on the passenger side, so you'll get a bank 2 exhaust or inlet or intake camshaft position fault. The way those wiring harnesses are routed and kinked, it pulls at the wire and it disrupts the signal, and you just have to splice in a new pigtail. So nothing crazy, nothing super costly. These engines are also kind of known for going through spark plugs pretty quickly. You get random misfires. Pull those plugs, check them all with each other, and if you see any plugs that are more dark than the rest, you may have some oil consumption in that cylinder. And then moving to like the more significant issues, the rings, they're suspect. You can have issues, you may not have issues, but we're going to go into how I operate and maintain the vehicle that has gotten me this far, again with zero oil consumption with over 27,000 miles on the car. And ring lands. We typically see that on cars that are tuned by inadequate tuners. I'll just leave it at that. This car is Lund tuned. It's got an E85, Flex, and 93 tunes. It's been like that for over about a year and a half, and tracked it both before and after the tune, no issues. Now, moving on to maintenance and care and operation of the GT350 Voodoo engine. This engine is a very high strung engine, and it is a flat plane crankshaft, which if you're watching this video, you probably already know that. But the way that the flat plane crank in the GT350 is designed is completely different than what the flat plane crank in the C8 Z06, Ferrari, and your European flat plane crank V8s are. And because of that, it does have extra inherent chassis vibrations, and that's nothing. They've done the best they can to isolate it, with the motor mounts. But this car does make a lot of vibrations that if you're not expecting it, or you're coming from a more refined car like a BMW or something German, you're going to be like, something's wrong with this car. And it's just how the car operates. This car also has and makes a lot of unusual noises that, again, you might think there's something wrong with the car, and specifically the engine. But again, it is just how this car sounds, just how this car operates, and how this engine sounds and operates. The noises I'm specifically referring to is occasionally you'll have the tick, which is similar to the Coyote tick. It's the same sound. It doesn't seem to be as prevalent in the Voodoos as the Coyotes. But then the main one that everyone gets concerned with is the piston slap. And that is an audible, it is a fairly loud noise between 2,000 RPM and I'd say about 3,500 RPM under light and medium throttle. The exhaust kind of drowns it out if you're on full throttle, but the piston slap, this car has had it since new. And again, we're at 27,000 miles, no piston skirt failures, no ring land failures, no ring failures, no oil consumption, all that's good. Now, the way I maintain and operate this car, now again, what I'm about to say is purely my experience and what I've seen and how I've treated this car and the results that I've gotten from it. When I start this car up cold, I let it idle up until about 140 to 150 degrees oil temperature. So depending on your climate, that's going to take a decent amount of time. So you kind of got to plan if you're going to take this car out, or you need it to go to work or whatever. You kind of got to plan around it. This is not a Coyote. You cannot just get in it, start it, wait for the idle come down, and drive it. That is not what you want to do with an engine that is this tight of margins, 12-to-1 compression, forged internals, and it is a motorsports derived engine. This is not a run-of-the-mill 5.0 Coyote. So idle it up to 140, 150 degrees oil temperature, then go ahead and drive off. And in that time, you're going to hear the piston slap, or most of the time you will hear the piston slap. But keep it under 3,000, 3,500 RPM. I drive it just like that, maximum 3,000, 3,500 RPM, up until 180 degrees oil temperature, and then I'll drive it up to like 6,000 RPM. And by this time, it's probably been, from the start of idling through driving, it's probably been 15, 20 minutes that the car has actually been on. But we have not pushed it, we have not dogged it, we're still getting it warmed up. After about 180 degrees oil temperature, start revving it out to 5,000, 6,000 RPM. I really don't do full load. There's really no reason to go full load if you're only going up to 5,000, 6,000 RPM. But use that to help get the oil temperature up, help get the engine temperature up. And you want to do that until you get the oil temperature up to about 200 degrees. Once you're at 200, that's when I start a clock, or like a mental clock of 15 minutes from that point. That's when I deem the engine is fully warmed up and will then drive it like it's intended to be used. So typically, a full driving cycle of this car, getting it all the way warmed up and properly warmed up, in my opinion, is about a 30 to 40 minute process. Like, it is not just get in it, get it up to 150 and send it, get it up to 180 and send it. No, it is get it up to 200 degrees, gradually, 140 to 150 idle, then up to 180, going no higher than 3,500 RPM, and then up to 200, maximum 6,000 RPM. Once you get to 200 degrees oil temperature for 15 minutes-ish, then by all means, 8,300 RPM all day, every day. Also, fuel dilution is a huge killer in the oil viscosity of the oil you're running, no matter what oil you're running. AMS oil, motorcraft, driven, fuel dilution kills oil viscosity, and as well as moisture. What does water boil at? 210 degrees. So to get the moisture out of the oil, you need to get the oil temperature up to 210 degrees for a sustained amount of time to get all that moisture out of there. If you're just putt-putting around and you're only getting to 190, 200 degrees oil temperature, you're not adequately getting that moisture out of the fuel, out of the oil, and then that is just gonna, over time, that's just gonna build up. You need to get this oil hot for a sustained amount of time to get that moisture out of the oil as well as the fuel. Again, it's just gonna snowball effect every time you drive it and don't get it up to that temperature. So if you're driving 5 miles to work, I would highly recommend getting a different vehicle. If you're just going to car shows, rev it out to 80, 200 RPM, you know, from first to second, second to third, that's it. Highly recommend and advising getting an alternative mode of transportation, because that will also kill this engine. Those bearings, the shearing forces at 8,300 RPM on this engine is pretty substantial. And having any bit of drop in viscosity and oil pressure is going to prove catastrophic over time. It's just going to take time to get there. The oil that I use and have used in this car since 400 miles, its first oil change, is the AMSOIL 5W50. Again, the oil is no longer the weak link in this car. This oil is good for oil temperatures up to 300 degrees. If you're seeing 300 degree oil temperatures, your engine has already failed or it's about to fail. So I run the AMSOIL and it's treated me well. Every oil change that has been done in this car has been done by myself or my father when he owned it for the first couple thousand miles. This car is the Gen 1 Voodoo again. And when I say Gen 1 Voodoo, I mean spin-on filter Gen 1. Again, it's 2016 with the original engine. Filter is back behind the wheel here. If you have a early 2017, 2016, or 2015 GT350 with the original Gen 1 Voodoo, you have the spin-on filter. Now those filters must, absolutely must be torqued per the spec on the filter every time. Do not pass go. Do not hand tighten it as much as you can. It will come off. I have tightened it with the cup every time and has never, ever backed off, ever even so slightly. I put a line on the filter to designate top dead center, and all I do is turn the wheel full lock, look under there between my sessions, or once every 3 or 4 months, and the line never moves. Now there are other things you can do to help keep the filter from backing off. I've seen people use like clamps and straps and all that kind of stuff. To me, that's just, it's a little bit of a pain. It's kind of unnecessary extra steps, and it just, honestly, as long as you're checking your stuff, which you're going to check it anyway, just, that's what's worked for me. If you want to do it a different way, if it works for you, that's cool. But again, the way I've done it, no issues with the filter backing off, ever. No issues with oil consumption, beating the car up. Now, moving on to what is probably overlooked by a lot of owners is cooling down the engine and the engine oil after driving the car in an aggressive manner on the track, street, what have you. I never shut this car off with the oil temperature over 215 degrees. Whether I'm out on the track, my oil temperatures get up to 250, 260, 270 is where 265 is when you start dialing it back, and 270 you definitely want to be off the throttle and driving in a more conservative manner. But never ever shut this engine off with 240 plus degree oil temperatures, 230 degree oil temperatures. That is just going to heat soak, bake, and just Heat kills everything. So you need to use the engine oil and the coolant to circulate and get the heat out of the metal, out of the engine, into the radiators, and out of the system. So when I'm at the track or I'm driving it hard on the street, I know when I'm usually going to be stopping or coming to an end, or you have your cool down laps, what have you, or I start driving in a conservative manner, and I let the car and the systems work as they're designed, get the heat out, and drive it around as much as I need to in order to achieve that 215, 210 degree oil temperature. And only then, once it idles down to 215, pop the hood, help get extra heat out if you're stopped. You're at the track, you're in the paddock, drive around the paddock, do whatever you got to do to get that oil temperature down. Just do not let it sit there. Turn the car off and let that 230 degree oil temperature, because if the oil is 230 degrees, the engine is just as hot, if not hotter. So you need to get that heat out. And then only once it's reached 210 or so do I then shut the car off. I really appreciate you guys tuning in this video. Hopefully you learned something. Hopefully you found the knowledge valuable. All I want to do is help out aspiring GT350 owners, current GT350 owners, better understand what car they're looking at to buy or what car they've just purchased. So definitely share this with your friends. Definitely drop some comments down below. Let me know what you think and what you found most helpful in this video. Smash the like button if you could. And again, thank you for being a member. Hopefully you guys like the new color, lizard green. It's definitely been a hit out on the social media platforms and in person. Everybody says they absolutely think it looks epic, and I can't agree more. It's been about 6 weeks and since I got it back, and the thing is gorgeous. So Precision Auto Body in Orlando, absolutely love it. It looks fantastic still to this day. I definitely can't be more proud and happy of the decision that we made to go with this color. That's going to do it for us here at the Driver Mod. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next video here on the Driver Mod.